2 minutes of 3. And Mark, if you're calling in from home, we hope you feel better. Actually, if he's calling in from home, he probably is feeling better. So, but anyway, okay. Privilege of the floor. Do we have anybody out there has anything that they would like to bring up at this stage of the meeting?
I do.
Well, then be my guest.
Bob Gilbert. I had the opportunity to drive up Lost Pass Road last Saturday at about 5:30 p.m.
Okay.
And it was a tremendous crowd, snow sledding.
Yes.
It was pretty packed. And I've got pictures of on-street parking on Lost Pass Road, six vehicles.
Okay.
One was a pickup truck bringing the road to basically one lane. I also had the opportunity to go by the overflow parking area that was not plowed.
Right.
So there was no access to that. I went by the overflow parking area this morning, and there was a big bucket truck doing the plowing. We took the back road coming here, and they're still plowing it out. They're actually doing a terrific job right now. Mm-hmm. But that isn't quite the point. So I was just wondering what could be done about that in the future, and I'm wondering if there's any training by the employees in the clubhouse when people go for tubing as to dealing with where the overflow parking should be. I mean, inadvertently they seem to be allowing it on the street.
Bob, did you mention this to the people in the clubhouse?
No, I didn't.
Did you mention it to public safety as well?
I decided to bring it here instead of public safety.
Because it's the mountains. The mountain leases the property from the water company.
I understand, but I have also a copy of the minutes of the planning board meeting highlighted when Cantlin made or the mountain made their presentation, and I'd like to read a line.
Oh, sure. We'll take care of the problem. There's no problem.
No, I understand. Yeah. It says existing clubhouse parking will be utilized with overflow in the golf course maintenance area, with the hope to promote walking to and from this area as well. That was in the presentation before the planning board. So obviously that wasn't being done, at least at some point in time last week. I don't know what transpired prior to that.
The town is, and I'd be interested in your opinion, resisted the temptation or whatever to put no parking signs up in selected areas, and that would be one of those areas. We're like, particularly Lost Pass Road is one thing. When they start parking on the ring road, then you got another problem, all right? At that intersection. What's your opinion, one way or the other? Should we be putting no parking signs up there? In the absence of signs, I don't see how you're going to communicate. Might personally communicate to people they're not supposed to park there.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, if I was running that business, I would have my staff trained automatically when they give out a tubing pass or people coming into the counter. I would let them know that if the parking if there's no available parking in this parking lot, I'd tell them where the auxiliary or overflow parking is, and I'd also say that there's no parking allowed on the street. I don't know, I guess I'd take that as a first approach. I don't know, I mean, the town can't control how employees are trained and not trained, and I don't know if they have been or haven't been, so I'm not saying one way or the other. But that seems to be the first step when you go to a facility and you want to, do business there. I know some of them must have had to, well, they either parked on the road and walked there and did their business, or they stopped there first. I'm telling you, it was a heck of a crowd. I mean, it was nice to see, but it just led to this problem. I don't know, Bill, to answer your question. None of us like signs, but if it ends up that that's the only thing to do, maybe.
It's the age-old dilemma that we have, which is the situation there, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, they had the same problem down at the athletic center again. Athletic center parking lots absolutely were you could not park in the athletic, and I don't know where people park.
I've parked at the Golden Eagle myself.
Right.
And
yeah.
Walked.
Because it was a mess. I mean, it happens 4 times a year. It's the age-old dilemma, and so but yet it happens with regularity. Ray, go ahead.
Just one thing, when the developer comes to the planning board, you know, we have all these detailed discussions about parking.
Right.
And we talk with the developer, we say, okay, you don't have enough parking here, we want the parking lot opened up. And all of that happens, and that's part of the approval. But then we all walk out of the room, and nobody else knows.
Right.
You know, we know about it, public safety wasn't at our meeting, so they don't hear about it. Obviously, the mountain went away and never told the clubhouse that they shouldn't be parking on the road. It's kind of a common problem that the decisions that are made as part of the approval are only in this room.
Well, it's a little bit of an, thing of, I know the rule and I'll, but, what can I do? And I'll beg forgiveness afterwards.
Well,
because it only happens a couple times a year. It's not every weekend, that we have the problem.
No, I know.
But going to the bigger problem that you just mentioned, should the planning board notify concerned individuals, meaning with concerns, people that are abutters or people that have that are a participant in any of these processes, their decisions and what the decisions mean? So there's a clear dialogue, so no one can say I didn't know?
I've spoken to a couple, and I know that a couple of them know. And prior to, in the minutes, the mountain, I guess, or Waterville Company or whoever, I don't know what the partnership is there, but they apparently spoke to the abutters.
Chris, to get you up to date, we're talking about the never-ending problem of parking during the peak vacation periods, and apparently this time the Tubing Hill, they were parked all up and down Lost Pass Road. And I do know, and I don't know if if people were parked on the highway out in front of the sports center, but we know that the sports center also during vacation week overflowed. There was just no place to park. And
I know we wrote several tickets over the weekend.
You actually did start ticketing vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And we've also noticed up around BBTS, I talked to Peter today, people dropping off their kids, just right off a boulder path and everything. So I talked to him about that today, and I even wrote a couple of tickets up there today. People watching their kids on the ramp, just parked in the road.
Yeah.
So, that's a issue.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, Aggie, go ahead.
Aggie, go ahead.
Well, no, you just asked about parking signs, and I'm not on the planning board or anything, but couldn't you put temporary parking signs? This tubing is just on weekends. It's just for about 5 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. Could you have some stick-on, no parking, metal prong ones to stick in the snowbanks temporarily, just for that period of time?
And we have a general ordinance that says that you're not allowed to park on any street at any time, right? But we have no signs any place that says you can't park here.
Right.
And it's the age-old dilemma. I mean, but to me, there's certain areas where we clearly do not want people to park, and that we don't want them on that ring road, and a couple of other sensitive areas. I mean, where parking is, could be potentially quite hazardous.
And that is a solution.
I mean, I am of the mind that we ought to just put signs up permanently and leave them there.
I wouldn't put them up permanently. I think Aggie's suggestion is a good one.
Okay.
You have
Kind of like when the triathlon comes into town. We can certainly do that, but the town has historically been anti-sign.
Yeah, I'd hate to see permanent ones, but temporary would be probably the first try solution.
Even those plastic sandwich boards that they're now using in Town Square, those fold up and you could put them right along 49 out by the clubhouse so that the cars won't park there.
And Lost Pass Road.
And up the road.
Let's not lose that one.
Seems like the businesses have some obligation too to
Yes.
follow up.
I think it's the mountain's responsibility to have signs up and observe. When we have golf tournaments, we're out there telling people not to park and directing them over to the other space.
But there's no consequence.
Yeah. I will say I find it strange that I come here today to talk about it, and the job they're doing clearing that overflow parking today. It's
Yeah.
a terrific job. I mean, they're doing a hell of a job,
Right.
so.
They're clearing it for Special Olympics.
I said
I was wondering why they were clearing it. It just dawned on me. Special
There
Olympics.
you go. All right.
But Bill, the consequences are, that was part of the approval.
But what do? Rescind the approval?
Well, I mean, you could certainly threaten to do that. I mean, that was part of the approval. That there'd be no parking on the road and there'd be parking over at the auxiliary parking.
I think public safety should let the Waterville Company and the mountain know that it's a problem that it needs to be addressed. Okay.
Well, include the sports center.
Yeah.
They added more parking spaces,
Yeah,
but they never marked anything.
yeah, it's,
So you actually, they don't get any more cars in there than they ever did.
But you know, in reality, because when that was addressed at the planning board, that more parking area was added, and the number that was claimed to be added, I went over to the sports center parking lot, and that number I mean, if they added half of what we were told, they were lucky. I mean, all they did was extend parking lot number 3, that whole back edge. I mean, they made it kind of like double wide, but when you start parking cars in there, what are you gonna do, park one in front of the other? So it really didn't work to add the 25 or 30 spaces we were told.
Can I give you a suggestion, Bob? If they didn't add what they said they were going to add, why don't we let them know that what they did does not work? You know,
Well, you know, the problem, to be honest with you, it's a part-time problem, and
Yeah.
you hate to.
It's 4 times a year.
I know. And the Coyote weekends, I will say there are some really, I don't know.
The
I don't
sports
know if
center is
it's
borderline on being probably 20 weekends a year.
exactly. I agree. I
Right.
agree. That's what I was about to say.
But you're right, they will need to get them back in because they agreed to add more parking, but I don't think they ever striped any of it. It's just dirt. And I don't think they ever effectively increased the capacity.
No, not really.
I mean, what they created was a monster lane in the back.
Yes,
You know?
that's exactly right.
so I think a dialogue is needed.
So maybe we'll ask Rainey to come
Yeah.
back in and talk about it again
That was,
because they're the
I
biggest
missed
offender.
Gross was here.
And on the
I
other
don't
one,
remember that coming to the planning board. Did I miss that meeting?
What?
When Tom,
Parking?
when Tom, yeah, Tom,
He may have come to the Board of Selectmen.
no, he
and
came to the planning board. He was sitting in the audience when that was discussed. I remember that specifically. I don't know if,
it is our responsibility to enforce it. I mean, you know, it's not necessarily the planning board's job to ensure compliance and enforcement. I mean, so we're not trying to stick you with
I mean,
that
at
task.
that same meeting, Ray, I don't know if this would spark your memory or not, but they talked about, maybe running some kind of a small shuttle bus or something.
They did, right.
Yeah, that never happened.
Well, what else is new?
But at least for the mountains part, they do run shuttle buses while the tubing is open.
Mm-hmm.
So it's at least we're making a little bit of progress.
Go ahead.
with the planning board, would they be able to like put their license for the tubing park on notice for next year if they don't comply this year? In other words, straighten out your act?
No,
or-
they're scheduled to come in May.
Yeah,
Right.
so, you know, you do have a little bit of leverage.
So I was not at that meeting. Was it a permanent
No, it was permanent, but, and we only asked them to come in May to brief us on how the season went, and we would have a general discussion. But no,
Yes.
it was a permanent approval.
But they were supposed to come back for dialogue in May,
Yeah,
so that
just
we
for a
could
dialogue.
voice stuff that we saw, and they could tell us what their future plans were or whatever, or.
Well, that parking lot doesn't come close to meeting the need. I mean, if they, you know, they can easily sell 2 to 3 times the number of spaces in that lot.
Well, if the auxiliary one was plowed, that'd be another 25 cars. That would do it.
But yeah, no, the auxiliary lot
The
would
point
be
is
fine.
getting someone to direct these cars there before
Yeah.
it's too late,
Well,
because you tell someone, oh, well, I'm just gonna be here an hour, it's no big deal.
Right.
Well, I mean, the rule of parking is that I will park at the shortest distance to walk to where I have to go. So if I've gotta go check in and buy a ticket, I'm gonna look to park as close as I can to that.
I mean, people were parked in the entryways to the parking lot on last week. I couldn't believe it.
Really?
At the
Yeah.
Coyote?
No,
No.
at the town,
At the-
town square.
The town
That's
square.
human nature. You see
Right.
somebody going to hike Tri-Pyramid, they pull in the depot camp and park as close as they can to the trail.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, I like the tennis people who won't walk 50 feet.
Right.
They're gonna play 3 hours of tennis in the sun.
Okay, well, what have we agreed to do? We need to make a note that I'm gonna have to ask Mark to again have, particularly the conference center, come back in and discuss parking overflow.
Conference
and-
center or the athletic center?
The athletic center, I'm sorry, the athletic center, and that we need to put the, I don't know whether it's Cantlin's property, so it's his, I don't know whose responsibility, but we need, who got approval, Cantlin? I guess, he owns it. He needs to be on notice that right now, the parking situation relative to tubing is not working. And they need to be prepared to come back in May and discuss how they're gonna fix it, and come back to the planning board. So we'll make a little note to Mark that he needs to get both those things communicated.
I'll make a call to Bill Carr before the weekend, just so we can see if we can put a damper on this weekend, so it doesn't happen.
When does the Special Olympics start?
Their opening ceremonies are Sunday night,
Okay.
but I'm sure the tubing will be
I'm
open
guessing the
Friday.
tubing, the worst of the tubing surge is now over.
Yeah, probably.
Special Olympics is always, there's parking on just about every square inch. It's not,
And who's gonna pick on them?
Yeah.
well, not
Well,
me.
they need the access, it's not like
Yeah.
they,
I agree.
Okay, anything else under privilege of the floor? No? All right. We're gonna go on to the regular agenda then. Approval of the minutes of the meeting of February 12th. Is there any changes, corrections to the minutes of February 12th? I did not.
yeah, I didn't either.
No.
No? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion then to approve the minutes as written, the meeting of February 12th.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're gonna bypass financial updates unless somebody has gone through the financial updates here on the board and wants to raise an issue.
No, I
We'll
was
save
waiting
it
for
to next
Mark,
minute.
yeah.
Public, department head updates, public safety. How's the
Well-
parking?
Going along good. We have some phone calls to make, I guess. No, it's been pretty quiet. The snow's been pretty good. I think we only had like 2 ambulance calls up to the mountain last weekend.
Okay,
This week's been quiet. It's been, slow and steady, moving on.
any update at all to the break-in situation?
No updates. We're still working
Okay.
on it. We have kind of a cast of characters we're keeping our eye out for, but nothing firm. Just a couple of ideas. And that's where that is. We're working on a couple things. That's how I'll leave it. But yeah.
And did the Stone letters of inquiry go out to the U.S. Attorney?
I'll ask Dave.
I believe so, yeah.
I'm not sure.
Okay. And you've had no
Mark had done
updates?
that.
Okay.
But, right.
Okay, Public Works.
Busy week last week, but I think we're ready now. I think we've got all the roads prepared for either rain, thaw, or more snow, so we've got stuff pushed back pretty well.
I will pass on a citizen's complaint that I got.
Mm-hmm.
They were I guess they've been cutting back the banks.
Mm-hmm.
I know on River Road, they damaged a fair number of trees. I mean, they really pushed them back. So there are a lot of broken branches and stuff as a result of cutting it back.
Okay.
I don't know what our policy is, but it seemed to me we should try to, as best we can, avoid damaging trees.
Right, and there's always a trade-off between
Yeah.
trying to keep your shoulders available for
Right.
drainage.
No, just passing it on.
I have one comment, Bill.
Yeah.
I went to get the mail today, and the half round coming out of the square, I always take a right to go back to my condo, and that mound right there could be cut back. You have to bring your car halfway into the road now to be able to see around if a car is coming.
Right.
So maybe we could, I don't know if that's gonna be a town road, right? What's the village road?
The road is,
Well, the
not
road
the
is
loop.
It's not the loop, so.
Well, the end is on the road.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know who's-
We'd have to
Yeah,
ask our
I mean,
president.
This is one of the things that I've added to my list for next year, because I would like to start the season off and have a meeting with all the property managers and discuss with them the proper way in which to how to plow snow. Every one of them, in every section of town where it goes off from a town road, they plow against traffic. And they mound up on that side against traffic, and you're supposed to plow with traffic. And according to the law, you're only allowed to take the windrow that's in that private way and put it back out, that the town put in there, and put it back out into the road. Nothing else. And they've been plowing driveways out into our right of way, into our roads, and etc. So a lot of these spots where we have an intersection for a private drive and the town road, the snow that is there was put there by in most cases was put there by the property managers, and should be their responsibility.
Whoever it is, I'm just trying to let everybody know it's a safety hazard right now, because that's a big pedestrian area as well.
Can we go in and just clean that up, even though it's someone else's responsibility in the name of public safety?
Yep.
Why don't we just do that?
I like your suggestion, though, of at some point in time, for all the people that are plowing, maybe we ought to have a little base course in terms of, proper etiquette for plowing.
Right, I mean, it just makes their job, because I fielded phone calls from some of them, and they're screaming at me because we're winging stuff back into what they just plowed, but it's because they put it there,
Right.
So we have to maintain, we can't allow any of that to encroach out into the road. And and we all know that there's a lot of the roads in this town, are quite narrow.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't think we need to remind you, but I'd encourage you to do exactly what you're saying. If there's anything the Board of Selectmen can do to help you with that, I'd be more than glad to do that. But I think we ought to get them, we ought to try to communicate, this is, our expectation of what you need to do. Okay, anything else on Public Works?
Not unless you have anything else.
What about salt? We were talking about salt last week. Is that situation?
We're good. Yeah, I got another load this week. Actually, the end of last week, and we seem to municipalities and state agencies are salt's readily available. It's still not going out to general contractors, though. Last I know.
Okay, great.
Recreation? Is there anybody have? We don't. Nothing here.
Yeah.
Margaret, do we have an update on the situation looking for a?
Haven't
Nothing.
heard anything else from Rachel, so.
So nothing's
Yeah.
happened at this stage. Okay. We were talking about finding the assistant recreation director's position, filling that. Right. We're still in the process of trying to find candidates. Was Kevin coming in? I don't know. I'm going to new business. Was Kevin planning to come in today?
He is coming in. That's what Karina just said. He's probably about 15 minutes out.
Okay.
Oh,
He's on
okay.
his way.
So he is going to come in.
Yeah.
So we'll hold off on that. The RSMS and Culvert Assessment Program.
But we need to do the calendar review to determine your schedules
Yep.
for the
Calendar
town
review.
election and how you're going to
Who's gonna
break
work
up your
when?
time. This is your last meeting to do that.
What day is
So
that?
it's going to be on Tuesday, the 11th.
Yeah.
The polls open at 11 a.m. 11 to 7 they're open.
I'll do the first shift if that's okay.
And the town meeting is at 3, so you'll all be there at that time. So
I'm available all day long, so
How many of us have to be there?
I believe just
I thought it was
one.
just one.
Technically just one.
Yeah.
okay.
And obviously you'll be there for a portion of it, but
I'll stay after the after the meeting.
You wanna stay late?
Yeah, I'll stay late.
Alright, so I'll.
That's right, the polls are open to when?
7.
To 7, so can you stay to 7, Margaret?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll stay too, because you're gonna need help counting.
Yeah.
And that's the one election where counting actually can get,
How about if I do 11 to 2?
why don't you do 11 to 1, and I'll come in at 1 o'clock.
Well, I can do, if you're gonna stay late, I'll do 11 to 2 and just give me an hour to go home and come back before the meeting.
Okay, whatever, right.
So you just have to come to the meeting an hour early. So
Right.
2 hours early.
So 11 to 2 for you, Mike, and then 2 to 7, Bill,
Right.
or?
Yeah,
then
and
you
Margaret will
do
pick it up
3 to
and
7?
help at night
Okay.
too.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. The, traditionally, the selectmen's meeting on the 12th, is canceled, right?
We did it with appointments right after last year's town meeting, but
Right.
that's when we didn't have a state election to go through and have the polls open still, so we won't know the results of the election to appoint people, or to,
Gotcha.
so
So we need to keep that meeting on the calendar
I
right
think you
now.
need to keep it on the calendar for
Okay,
now.
yeah, good suggestion. All right. The RSMS and Culvert Assessment Program, I don't think it's anything we need to do with that. We were just informed by the North County Council
North
that
Country
they
Council,
do have a methodology to assess roads and culverts.
yes, and Jim has some of that as well.
They just informed us, or notified us that, they are working to put together a program on both of those items, both on road surface, surveys and culvert assessment surveys. And they may be coming out with some pilot programs, and hopefully we can be one of their pilot programs to get this started off
Okay,
at no to minimal cost.
okay.
So I have asked James Steele of North Country Council to please send me more information as he gets it, because I express an interest in participating.
Okay. But this is a voluntary thing. This is essentially a scoring system that enables you to evaluate your roads and score them.
That's correct, and it helps you both not only structurally but economically evaluate your roads to see what makes sense to fix first and what makes sense to fix later,
Okay.
as well as with the culverts.
All right. Good. Any questions on that? No. It's fairly straightforward. The Resort Association requests to release funds. Mike?
Yeah, they sent you a bill for advertising the wedding guide,
Mhm.
and I saw nothing wrong with it.
What was
It's
the amount?
1,200 or 1,800.
18.
And from your perspective, that's in keeping with the.
Right, these dispersals are voted on by the Resort Association
Right.
before they're presented to the town.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion then?
Sure, I'll make the motion to release the $1,800 to the Resort Association.
How much do we have in that account?
And we're building it up to 7. It was
75.
58 at the end of the year last year.
Okay.
We're going to replenish it to 75 going forward this year. So this will come out of this year's.
Okay.
Okay. I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Sidewalk bond at the BVTS. Can somebody enlighten us as to what the issue is?
Okay.
Right.
BBTS came to me via John Voder, who's the contractor over there.
Hello, John.
Hello.
Yeah.
Great to work with. Talking about an occupancy permit for the training center. And
Okay.
the only hang up with that is that the sidewalk isn't complete yet.
Right.
And we knew this was going.
Are we sure? You've looked under the snow.
Right. Sure. So we kind of had a little bit of forethought that this was going to come about, and a few meetings ago I talked with the board about it, and you guys suggested that they put up a bond in order to get an occupancy permit, a bond for the sidewalk. So I guess that's why we're here.
What do you recommend?
Well, Krista, you did get some feedback from Mark.
Well, I
Go ahead,
actually,
John.
I talked to Jim today, and Jim and I talked about it,
Yeah.
and we figured our, because we do all our own site work.
Yeah.
we had about $6,500 budgeted in there to complete the sidewalk. I went over the numbers and the tonnage and everything with Jim today on this, and his only concern was that, you know, he's not gonna do it himself. If he had to subcontract it out, he thought, you know, a $10,000 figure was probably more realistic if he had to sub it out. So I guess we're between 6,500 and 10,000, somewhere in there, to complete this sidewalk. Or 10,000.
I'm assuming your intention is to come back and do this?
Yeah. Yeah. I think these guys can attest. I've pretty much done everything that I
Absolutely.
said I would do along the way.
He's been very good to work.
Ray?
Yeah, we just ran out of time. We would have had it done, but we ran out of time in the fall, and we just couldn't get it done.
I think there's two issues there, the sidewalk and the parking
Well, yeah, the parking, the hard pack parking in the other area.
by tennis, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, which we looked at in the fall, and it froze up on us, but
Yeah.
there's not a lot of work there. We have pretty much a load of the bluestone hard pack and just some grading to do there.
And what is your plan here now in terms of before I mean, it's gonna get done in June?
As soon as, you know, I talked to Jim and he's comfortable that we can do it, and it's gonna you know, we're not gonna have problems with it.
But this isn't something you're planning on, I'm gonna go off on another job and I'll be back here, you know, when I can.
No, our goal is to get it done and out of here as quickly as possible, so.
What are the chances of if a occupancy permit is going to be given based on sidewalks and that paving to be done, or hard pack, can it be done with a stipulation that if it's not done by a certain date, July 1st or whatever, that the occupancy permit gets revoked?
Can you do it contingent,
With conditions?
conditional occupancy permit?
absolutely.
Yeah, if the planning board wants to put that as a caveat, I don't have a problem with it.
I think it's us,
That's us.
yeah.
Well, are we getting a request from the planning board?
I mean,
or-
in the past, you know, some landscaping or whatever things were issues from a planning board issue.
Well-
So I'm just saying, it's fine, you know, I don't have a problem with the occupancy and the people are gonna do the work that they say they're gonna do. But I think if it's not done by a certain date, they either have to come back and explain why, or they don't get an occupancy
All
permit.
right, so there's two things here. You know, typically, the way we handle this is you're asking the contractor to put a bond up. And you're saying you're saying 10,000 you covered if you did it. You're saying you don't have a problem with the $6,500 bond?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. What I'm gonna suggest is in this case, we ask them to post the $6,500 bond, all right? And, give us a date. When are you gonna, so that you're comfortable? You're gonna get this done by when? September 1st?
Go 1st of May and you're done.
How about September? Yeah, but don't,
By July 4th.
Yeah, by July 1st.
by 4th of July, if not done, we're
Yep.
gonna pull the occupancy permit.
We'll be fine by 4th of July.
All right, I'd like to change that a little bit.
Go ahead.
Usually, if Jim, you're saying it's gonna be 10,000 to do it, the cost between a $10,000 bond and a $6,500 bond is about $4 or something. It's not significant. So I would be more comfortable with a $10,000 bond. So in case the world goes to hell and we're stuck in a situation where the town has to put the sidewalk in. And I would also have the caveat in there that the occupancy permit is conditional upon the work being completed by July 4th.
Yeah, I think the BBTS is gonna put up a cash check for this, so. They're gonna put up the cash or whatever you
Well,
guys
then
require.
there's a difference between a bond and
Right.
So what you're saying is you're gonna put money in an escrow account
Yep.
Right.
as opposed to a bond. Well,
Right.
there's a difference because a bond is insignificant amount of money.
Right.
How does BBTS feel about putting $10,000 up in an escrow account?
I will have to go back and ask BBTS's CEO.
I mean, we can't guarantee the number of $6,500.
That's why I'm saying
at this
10.
point today, for in the future, so.
Well,
You know,
What we
traditionally,
don't want,
to cut it that
we don't
close.
want, the town doesn't wanna get into the business of constructing a
Oh,
sidewalk,
I understand
period.
that, I understand
but,
that.
Bob, the reason I came up with 10,000 is in my previous business experiences, whenever I had a holdback, it was always 1.5 times the estimate. So 10,000 is close enough to 6,500, 1.5 to make me comfortable with it.
All right, you wanna make a motion to the effect that we'll grant a,
Conditional occupancy
the
permit.
conditional occupancy permit to July 1st, all right? On the basis of either posting an escrow account or a bond of $10,000.
And completion of the work on the sidewalks as well as the work in the parking area, correct?
By July 1st. So here a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. If BBTS for some reason says this is ridiculous, we can't do this, we'll come back to the next meeting, we'll come up with something else, I guess.
Can I ask a question about
Please.
the sidewalk maintenance going forward? Will the town be maintaining that sidewalk clear of snow?
Whose land is it on?
It's on
It's gonna be on the town's land.
town's land, yep,
Then I would assume the town's gonna maintain it.
okay.
It's an 8-foot sidewalk, right?
I believe
That's correct.
we're responsible for all the sidewalks, right? Except for the ones we don't wanna do.
If the board so directs.
Well,
the
I don't
Public
really
Works to
call
do
that
to do
strip
it,
of tar
then
over
we will
by
do
the
it.
Black Bear a sidewalk. I don't know what to call that, a path through the woods, a
Okay,
meandering path through the woods.
It would be in everybody's best interest, public safety wise, to maintain that sidewalk through the winter time.
Yes.
Given the activity that
Right.
level of activity that's there now.
Everybody's walking in the roads now.
Okay, anything else on this? So you're okay, BBTS, and if for
Yes,
some
I'll get
reason
back to you.
that's not an issue, if an issue, you get back to us.
Yeah, one of them will work, I
Yeah.
just need to figure out which one it will be.
A bond is really cheap money.
Yeah,
Right.
and we're heading into the end of our season, so I think that might be the way we go.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll get there 3 days. As soon as that ground breaks, we'll do it, so.
Okay.
Well, I guess Mark Meter's not here, so.
I'll see you next week.
Assessing information from Mark Peter.
Yeah, they're not doing the thing.
Did he provide us? He provided us with a whole bunch of stuff.
There's a whole bunch of stuff
I
that's
mean,
in there.
20 pages worth of stuff, and
We're doing it.
net, we left this last time that we didn't have a problem. Now, what she gave us was the statistical rationale, and I really didn't need any more bedtime reading.
I tried reading it.
There was
Do
quite
you
a
know,
bit of
do you have any
information
idea
in
what
there.
they're saying? I think they're saying we're okay, right?
I
Yes,
think
but
that
they gave
basically
us
there's
the methodology
the
to say why
methodology.
we're okay.
Exactly.
And what they excluded, a lot of these things that throw us out were these timeshares,
Yes.
where the assessed value was $218 and the sale price was $2,600.
But I think the ratios they're looking for, we were within the bounds of the ratios.
We
Yes.
are within the bounds of the
And the only thing the only question I had, and you're probably going to be, maybe Mike, you can answer this, and you know, we are right now under-assessed, or are we under-evaluated or over-evaluated? We're at 93%, and last year we were at around the same number. I don't know whether it means that's the equalization ratio.
Right, so it means properties are selling at 93%.
percent of their weird 7% under.
Right.
They're selling 7% under. Okay.
Under or more?
I think it's 7% more because I
Yeah.
think the 93% is the equalization ratio to the state. See, that's why I always ask the question, right? I think they're selling a little bit more than I don't know.
No,
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure it's.
Well, okay, we'll wait till the next meeting. We'll
Okay, let me
figure
just
it out.
read- Actually, I'm looking at the included sales here. And of course, one is sale price 183, assessed 191.
Okay.
Sale price 355, assessed 340. Sale price 457, assessed 394. Sale price 385, assessed 342. Sale price 334, assessed 291.
Well, they were all over.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Just curious as to which direction we're heading. Okay. So we'll hold that off in the discussion in the next meeting. Kevin. Perfect timing.
Okay.
So we want to go over the agenda for town meeting. And first of all, Kevin, I really want to thank you for agreeing to do this on
May I
short
sit?
notice. Absolutely, any place you like.
My pleasure.
So, usually when we've done this in the past, the moderator would come in and tell us what they were and weren't going to allow. From a standpoint of controlling the flow of the meeting, do you have any guidelines or things that you'd like us to know about?
What, I guess in the past, Bruce, or whoever was there would write up rules for that meeting.
Generally followed some rules in terms of how long a presentation could be. And if there were questions or comments from the floor, he had rules in terms of you get a chance to speak once, when everyone else, and then other people get a chance to speak before we're going to let you speak again.
And is there a written copy of that? Because I brought a written copy of rules that I found to be pretty close.
Okay.
To what I would think we would need, but I would like to see something from past meetings if it exists.
There's probably something in the voter box that it's probably in there.
Okay, and I'll take the two, I'll put them together.
Sure.
Okay.
And get that to you before the meeting.
Right. Obviously, the thing we're most concerned about is not trying to get bogged down on any particular issue, but to get it there.
But at the same time, giving people a fair opportunity too.
Oh, absolutely, sure. Yeah, fair to voice opinions and new opinions and the rest. Yeah.
And so many things that you're talking about, the things that we covered, they're included in the rules that I've been sort of working with here.
Okay.
And I'll take a look at what we've done in the past, put them together and get those to you. I do have a series of questions that came from this in terms of preparation, how the meeting's going to run. This is pretty clear. Do you have someone, for example, who's going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
Usually someone from the school.
Yeah.
They let us know whom that's going to be.
Sometimes it's one of the Boy Scouts, like Mark has Boy Scout involvement, he sometimes gets somebody from the troop to do it.
Can we volunteer Mark to come up with a name?
Sure.
Okay, so I'll have that name prior to
We'll have that
the
name
first.
prior to the meeting, right.
So the name will come from Mark. This is all pretty self-explanatory.
Mm-hmm.
So who sets up, when you start to look at the meeting, who's setting up that room ahead of time?
Mark.
Okay, so that room would be set up with microphones. We going with the wireless microphones that people are holding and taking into the crowd?
We had a wireless microphone that we had a couple of the kids from the school.
Two of them, I think.
That would run around and hand them to
hold the
people.
microphones this year.
That doesn't allow anybody to
That's
hold.
that's one of the rules.
Yeah.
And and I guess one of the rules, do we want them addressing us from their seat or coming up and?
No, addressing from their seat, I think is the way we're making their comments from the floor, as long as they need to introduce themselves so that we have a record of who is making the
State their
comments.
name and.
We do not require whether they state whether they are a voting resident or not, right?
Well, that's actually an important consideration because we have to decide whether non-voters will be able to speak. It's one thing if you have a member of the town who's shedding light on a warrant article before you. Are we letting folks come in and speak that are non-voters?
I
think
believe
we always
in the
have.
past we
We
have
always
allowed non-voters to speak.
Because we have a lot of property owners who are non-voters.
So if they are property owner, if they are neither property owners,
Or a
nor voters.
business owner in the town.
okay, so we
You
want
know,
this,
so someone
we want
that-
everybody to be able to speak.
Absolutely.
Is there an
Whether-
order? Is there an order of that you use? Do you start with voter or you just?
No.
First in, first up.
No, there isn't.
Okay.
And I don't believe I know Bruce tries to do balanced comments, so if we got somebody talking in favor and then you get somebody talking in favor, we're trying to find somebody who has an opposing point of view before we get 18 people all saying the same thing, so.
And so
But that's hard to do. But as moderator, you can do your best to try to get, balanced comments or something, yeah.
I think one of the key points that I took from this was to handle the amendments one at a time, so that we're not getting amendments to amendments.
Right.
So we won't allow that. We'll take the amendments, vote on that amendment, move on.
Right.
Amendments, it's recommended amendments be presented in writing, so they be sent up ahead of time.
We have told people, and we'll tell them again at the beginning of the meeting, all amendments must be in writing.
Okay,
So I will not take verbal amendments on the floor. You'll need to write them down, and if you want to have an amendment, you need to walk up and present it written.
So that would be part of the rules that we would
Right.
hand out. Do you want to
Hand out or
rules
speak to at the beginning of the meeting, one or the other is fine with me, Kevin.
Okay, the recommendation is to hand out the rules so that he has those.
Okay.
But it's,
No, I think it's a good
Either
idea,
way.
especially since we're going into a new era.
okay. And beyond that, I wasn't at the budget hearings.
Right.
Is there a record of the budget hearings that I could either read or listen to get a sense of where
You can watch it online.
I can watch it online, okay, so that's.
There is, the budget hearing.
Because,
There wasn't hardly a comment in the budget
yeah,
hearing.
Great.
but at least you know what was discussed.
The comments had nothing to do with the budget.
Yeah.
There was a lot of comments,
Yeah.
and this is always where these meetings can digress, what was the subject? It was something, had nothing to do with the budget.
Stone was
Stone was,
the
Stone
break-ins.
property manager,
And
the
the
break-ins.
break-ins.
We went on a
The
30-minute
budget hearing
dialogue
documents
about the
are still
break-ins.
online, too.
How is that going to be addressed by
Yes.
anyone?
Yes, we have requested information from the United States government on this, and hopefully we will have an answer. If not, we will address the fact that
Well,
we don't have
relative
an
to
answer.
Stone,
Stone.
we could have Mark address that at the beginning of the meeting. You think it'd be worthwhile?
Well, if I'm hearing that was the biggest
Yeah.
part of
Well,
the
that would-
conversation at the budget hearing, that's what's on people's minds.
Well, the
The
break-ins
break-ins.
had happened that
The break-ins.
weekend, so that, there
Right.
was not a lot of communication, so people were bringing that up. As a forum, because public safety was in the building as well as the town,
So,
being represented.
is there a point in here where we have the various departments doing reports or speaking?
Yes, there will be someone designated on each one of these motions to present it from the standpoint of a 10-minute, with the exception of the one that's in there by Kevin. Not Kevin. Eric.
Okay.
Yeah, by Eric. Now, I presume that Eric will be at the meeting to present that, because that is not the recommendation of the Board of Selectmen or anything. It's just by petition, and I assume he'll come and talk to it.
So it's on the warrant by petition.
It's on the warrant by petition, and it clearly states that.
And so, just so I understand, if we get to that point, and for some reason Eric isn't there to read this, who is making the motion?
Whichever one of us,
Whoever's got it.
whoever has it.
Okay.
One of us
That's
is
our number.
assigned to read
I think
it,
Margaret got the short stick on this one.
but I
Yeah,
can't
Margaret.
talk
Yeah.
to
It's
at
the long
all
one.
why you should or should not support this. I mean, we can read we'll read it.
Sorry, okay, so
Sure.
Margaret and then Bill is
See-
seconding,
see-
okay.
Right.
See the
I see it,
bottom?
yep, no, yep.
Right.
The caveat that tells you
Yep. So it's a bit of so,
Now, it's a good thing, and maybe we ought to back up on, when we get done with this one, we'll back up on Eric's. So we'll assume that Eric or one of his representatives will be there to address why you should vote positively for this amendment. The Board of Selectmen has no recommendation.
so we don't so basically you generally allow the proponent to speak first, so that would be
Absolutely.
Eric.
Yes.
If Eric isn't there, it's open for discussion and whoever
Yes.
wants to take it takes,
Right,
okay.
takes, right.
And then the vote can take any form, so
Right.
hopefully a voice vote will be
Right.
sufficient, if not, we'll move through the order of.
Article number 2, I think it's important that you understand Article number 2. Article number 2, we're basically asking the authority to bond $235,800. However, the only reason we're asking for that amount is we already have approval for over $500,000, because the garage is $800,000. People are going to think naturally that the $500,000 is bonds we've already written. They're not bonds we've written. Legally, it has to read the way it reads. But from anyone who's sitting in the audience, they got to understand that we're asking for the authority to spend $800,000 to build this garage.
Where did the 500 come from?
It came from a previous
Authorization.
warrant article they authorized 2 years ago, and the money has been sitting there because we've never done it.
Part of
yet.
the recycling project.
Okay,
Out
how
of
long-
the- Out of the 1.1
Right.
of the recycling project, 585 was designated towards a building.
Towards a building.
And how long did we have to spend the 500?
Forever.
So was
we
it a
keep
bond
rolling
or-
it over forever.
Was
We
it
haven't
a
bond?
bonded, it's
It hasn't
bonding
been borrowed.
authority.
It hasn't been
Thank you,
borrowed
it's
yet.
bonding authority, so because the way the way it comes in,
It
by way of
sounds
a
like
bond.
that we're only spending $236,000 for a garage, You just need to, now Mark is gonna explain it, that it's an 800,000. If you turn this down, what we'll do is not spend that money that was previously authorized. I mean, it's an
So
800.
basically, if they don't authorize the 235,
We're not gonna.
the 500 isn't going to be spent.
Spent, that's
Right.
correct.
So they could effectively stop 800,000
Exactly.
being
Right.
spent.
And I just wanna make sure that you understand that, all right, because going forward on this bond, because it's going to be confusing to explain that to people. You know, some people, no matter what you tell them, are gonna believe that we've already borrowed that other money and it's sitting in some magic pot. No, this is gonna be new taxes.
So, but in point of fact, what they're doing is they're reaffirming the last 500.
That's
Or
correct.
reauthor, not but they are effectively reauthorizing.
They're
it.
reauthorizing.
And authorizing you to
Yeah.
spend another 235 for a
Right,
total
right,
of 800.
yeah, you got it.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
So he'll explain it that way, or is that?
Mark will explain it that way, yeah.
And basically my role would be to clarify if there seems to be confusion.
Right.
Prior to the vote.
Just wanna make
so
sure
know
that
what they're
people
voting on.
absolutely know what they're voting on.
But they're really only voting on 235.
Correct. It
Okay.
has to read the way it reads, according to the legal counsel. We can't have it read any other way, unless we went to put the only other way to do it is you have to put a motion in rescinding the authority to spend 535, followed by a motion asking to spend 800. And that sounded more confusing than this.
But the effect is the same.
Same, yeah,
Okay.
right.
I believe I understand that one.
I think that was the only one that's
That was the only one
tricky.
there's any kind of.
Bill, isn't there a point in the meeting where the moderator suggests that we waive the complete rereading of articles before
Yes.
we take a vote?
For,
And I didn't see that in here anywhere. When we start out on an article, we do a complete reading of the proposal, okay? When it comes time for a vote, the normal process would be to read it all over
Reread.
again. And, in order to save some time, not put people to sleep, I think that we can do.
Right, waive the rereading of the motion.
The moderator on his
Moderator.
own basically
Yes.
says, how we're gonna proceed is we're gonna waive the rereading of the article.
now that works unless there are amendments.
Right.
If there are
Oh, if there are
Right.
amendments, you
That's-
gotta reread
oh,
it.
Okay,
Right.
because you need to reread it with the amendments.
Right.
Yeah.
Who will be doing the rereading? The same person that read it originally?
I guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to waive rereading.
Unless it's amended, in which case the
Do
individual.
they vote on that though?
They have to vote for the amendment, then we'd have to
No,
take the
do they
amendment.
have to vote on waiving the rereading?
I don't believe they do, I think that's the
We can make
privilege of
that
the
one of the
moderator.
rules.
Okay.
I thought that's what Bruce did.
Mark would know this stuff
Yeah.
up and
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
But I think Bruce just did that on his own.
Yeah, I think Bruce reread, the article with the amendment,
Right,
because the person who made the amendment in writing would come up and give it to Bruce,
Give it to Bruce.
right?
Right.
I mean, that's what happened. I don't know what's
And then he has the article
appropriate.
and the amendment side by side.
So maybe we oughta, you raise a good point, which is the thing in writing is gonna go to you.
Right.
So if the amendment is voted in the positive, so now we've gotta reread it with the amendment, I would suggest that you do that.
But in situations where there is no amendment, we'll waive.
We'll waive the rereading.
Okay, so I'll add that to the rules.
Right.
So in terms of going over, I guess I'll have to go over with Mark everything that's being set up and how this is being run. Because a lot of my questions have to do with, who the assistants are, how we're working with them. I'm assuming that's something he's thought through.
He will
Okay.
get that, he will make sure all of that functions.
Okay,
right.
so let me just run through this real quick. So the supervisor of the checklist will be determining who's an eligible voter, who is not.
yeah,
Are we separating the voters?
no.
So everybody's in there. How are we,
They hand out
They give 'em
cards.
cards.
so,
They give them out yellow cards, and so if you vote, you gotta raise your yellow, whatever the color is.
so you're saying when we ask for a voice vote,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to raise their card as
Right,
they
and we
speak
count
out?
the cards.
Well, then now we're not doing a voice vote, we're actually doing a count of the vote.
It's gotta be a raising of hands, that's correct.
Okay, cause you could go and do a voice vote, and if it's clear move on from there.
I would suggest that is difficult, given the number of people that'll be in the meeting that are not registered voters.
So we want people to, we wanna do a count of each of the
Yeah.
votes.
Unless it's, if you're the moderator, if it's obvious.
Well, no, the point that you made is there will be people there that aren't registered voters who will
Correct.
not have cards.
Yes.
And if you did a voice vote,
Hard to decipher.
It'd be a little bit harder to
Yeah.
determine unless you were doing a voice
No.
vote with cards and.
But
So-
I don't think I don't think we're required to keep a count. If you look at it and say, the ayes have it, because when there were only 2 people objected and
Right.
60 people voted yes, that's it. You don't have to record it as 60 to 2.
It's interesting, because that's not a,
I don't think we've ever done it in the past.
No, I don't think so
Yeah,
either.
I
I
Bill-
think when it's been close, we've done a count.
Right.
If it's not close, if it's so obvious that,
I can remember a close
it's going
count.
one way.
so if we were to say to them, raise your card, yea or nay, and raise your card to signal it,
Yeah.
Right.
then we're hearing it and seeing it, but we're really accepting, we're not going through a count, we're accepting the voice vote and visually looking at it to confirm.
Using a visual
yes,
to confirm it,
to
right,
confirm.
yeah.
Because I'm not sure that there's, and I can go back through and look, but there's a whole series that you go through in terms of the types of votes.
Right.
And I've not actually heard the raising the card with not the counting, but certainly I'll look at it. Okay, so that would be the preference, be handling the
Right.
cards and doing it that way.
Now, do we only have one item that requires a secret ballot?
Well, let me ask a question, this is the one that would confuse me if I was taking over the moderating duties. At what point and how does one request a written ballot? And is there a time limit on, I know our other votes, it's an hour with the written ballot. Is it the same if something comes from the floor? Is there an hour voting time?
No.
What?
5 voters, if 5 voters present request a written, or that'd be a recount. But there is a procedure for requesting a written ballot.
Yeah, I don't know it.
I will have that.
But the question was, Chris, you look like you know the answer.
I think that anybody can ask for a written ballot.
Right.
It's not, as long as one person requests it, I believe you have to do it.
Yeah.
I wanna
And-
check that, cause I
and-
think, I thought it was a certain number of
No, I
think
percentage.
think it's
he's
one
right.
person. And then you have to leave the poll open for an hour.
And you can do other business during that
Right.
time.
Right.
You can still continue going forward.
Yes, the open period for anything that is a vote by ballot must be an hour.
And I only
But-
know that because I live in a neighboring town, and
Yeah.
every town meeting there was, at one point, there was an individual requesting every article be a ballot vote, and that's how I got educated on that.
Yeah. I
No
think
one,
you- I think
no one
you're
could
right.
vote it down.
Yeah.
But right now, I believe it's only Article 2 that requires a ballot, right?
Article 2's for the garage.
For the garage.
Yeah.
The 235,000.
No, the ambulance probably requires it too, right?
Now,
The ambulance is
required.
ambulance is
180.
not bonding, so.
Oh, it is,
Oh,
it doesn't matter, it's
No
the
vote can
amount.
take any
Oh,
form.
anything over, that's right.
It says.
It's anything
It is-
over 200,000?
I'm not sure of the dollar amount.
180 for the category. It says a vote can take any form or simple majority is required for approval on the
Well,
ambulance.
it clearly
Article.
states that in the case of the garage, this vote must be by ballot. Polls
Yes.
stay open for 1 hour.
Mhm.
It doesn't say anything.
Under the Article 3 for the ambulance, it just says it can take
Right.
any form, a simple majority.
And that
Right.
may
I-
be because we're doing it with cash
I think
instead
it's-
of a
It's the
bond.
dollar amount, I think it's the 200 is the
Is the
cutoff.
cutoff.
So you're basically, Article number 2 will have people go vote on that, using and we give them, and the procedure is they get little slips for which they check yes or no, and that's how the clerks keep track of who's eligible to vote and not vote.
And they have different colored slips in case somebody requests a written vote, then they use a different
Color slip
for
to keep
that
them
vote.
separate,
Yeah.
right. But usually in the past, we have 2 or 3 of those at the same time. We don't, we only have one that requires a
So that's
secret ballot.
Article
So
2.
as soon as we
Yeah, which is the
discuss
first
Article
article.
2, we'll have people go vote on it
Right.
and then move on to the others, which are all voice unless somebody requests a secret ballot.
And this is the order you wanna take everything in?
Yeah, that's why, because Article 2 requires an hour wait.
I think it has to be in that order, as the warrant states.
So you can't, there's not a motion to take things out of order.
I think it has to be from the largest sum in decreasing amounts going down.
I think it's because, I think we've done it in the past just because of things we needed to wait the hour on went first in the meeting.
Right.
Whatever the reason, we'll
Yeah.
take it in this order. You're the moderator. If somebody raises from the floor, they wanna take something out of order, I don't know what you do. I don't know what, if the citizens wanna vote it in, they vote it in. You know, they take it out of
They
order.
can always overrule the moderator with a 50% vote.
Yeah.
So if we were to deny it going out of order, and want to take it out of order, it's up to the meeting. One of the questions I had is, if you were to take these out of order, it's interesting when you look at these, they sort of group into, aside from the bond issue, they group into two groups. They group into those items that don't add any dollars, if you will, and then items that aren't included in the sum that we're voting on later on. So there are additional dollars, but some of these things are already, there are no additional dollars we're voting for. We're voting for the warrant, but we don't have to raise any money in addition to what we're asking in that last warrant article.
Oh, the last article could be amended if the numbers on these change.
You mean Article number 8?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
On the town budget?
Right.
We have had cases in the past where on the discussion of the town budget, there's been a vote from the floor to amend that to either add or take money out of the budget, and that's perfectly legit. You know, I mean,
And
if the.
Mark keeps a tally
Right, he's got a
going.
board,
Right.
say plus
article.
and minus, so we come up with a new figure.
And if he need be, he'll give us the new number, you know?
For example, Article 7, no amount will be raised by general taxation.
Right.
It's
Okay,
coming out
now
of-
there's a group of other articles where you go through this thing and, let's find them.
Yeah, see, some things we're bonding, some things we're taking out of our excess capital.
Correct.
And other things we're using out of the CIP, well.
Out of the unfunded,
Right.
Well, it says on
unfunded
Article 8
balance.
that it says does not
And by,
include-
I guess by law, according to town council, if we specifically designate that a warrant article is to be taken from the unfunded balance, it has to be worded the way it is.
Right.
I don't know if that affects the grouping and the order. I have not, other than the fact that generally, the last thing to be voted on is the town budget. I don't know if the rest of the order at all is sacrosanct at all. If
Well,
somebody from the
if-
floor wanted to move something, they could.
Except to Sharon's point, the reason that the first article is where it is because there's an
time.
hour
'Cause there's
wait.
a vote.
Right.
There's an hour wait, yeah.
We have never had anybody suggesting changing the order, so I can't imagine that someone would.
We don't have
you know, that
anything
would-
dramatic where they're waiting for the cavalry to come in with extra
Right.
voters.
Is it also fair to say, after Article 8, I don't see it in its general construction, but we almost always have a vote to prevent
It's
reconsideration
on the
of
next
things already
page.
voted on.
It's
Is that
It's
in
on the
here?
next
on the
page,
next page.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
definitely want that in there.
yes.
And the only question is where you
You're
put it.
making the motion,
Yeah.
so don't forget that.
Oh,
Kevin, did you understand the undesignated fund balance? Did you understand what we were talking about when we said that?
I believe it's from, it's sitting there so in other words, when you go to Article 5,
Right,
this article is not included in Article 8, so it's an addition to it. When you look at Article 7, you see that no amount will be raised by general taxation.
Right.
And there's nothing in there that says, and this amount is not included in Article 8. So it's not included in 8.
right,
But it's not an additional amount of money that
Right.
they're
Correct.
looking to raise over and above
Correct.
8. It was there from prior years, I'm assuming.
Right.
right. So
Okay.
what,
Right.
so what happens is that we had something like $1 million in fund balance, simply because for the most part, the employees of the town managed to bring all their budgets in under budget. And as you go along, that accumulates. What the town typically does with that money is that they use it for cash flow in between
Right.
when the tax payments arrive. But when it gets up to $1 million, that's more than what they need for just handling cash flow. So what we're doing is paying for some things out of that money,
And so,
and no new taxes are.
okay, so if I were to look at this,
Yeah,
I would see that, let's see, not included. So I would see that in Article 3, for example.
right,
So I go to Article 3, so there's a series of articles that don't increase it.
right.
Article 3 would be one, Article 2 is in addition to,
Right.
Well, we're
Article
going-
3,
Right.
we're writing bonds.
right? Article 4, let's see. Not included in 8. Article 4 is not included in 8, and there's nothing in here saying it's not going to increase it, so I'm assuming that Article 4 increases increases Article 8 and doesn't come from past, reserves or the float, the over the float that you're talking about. It was one of the things I noticed as I was reading through this. So it looks like 2, 4, and 5 increase Article 8. They don't come from savings that we've accrued in the past.
Well,
Okay.
they don't increase, but they are part of Article 8. Article 8 is a cumulative budget.
No,
No.
I think,
They're
no.
not included in Article 8. It means,
They're not
to me, it means
included
it's
in
an
Article
addition.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I
these
heard
are
the
funds in
question
addition
backwards.
to what's in Article 8.
Just give me one moment. I think I've almost had this organized in a way that I understand it. 5, 6 is, no amount would be raised, not included. So 6 is the same as 3, 1, and 6 so far, and then 7. So if I have this right, okay, and 7. So if I have this right, it looks like 3, 1, 6, and 7 come from the money that's been saved in the past and do not increase Article 8.
Right.
It looks like 2, 4, and 5 are going to increase Article 8. So there are 3 of which,
They don't increase, they come from taxes, let's put it that way.
right, but they're in addition to Article 8.
They
Okay,
are in
so
addition to Article 8,
They're in
right.
addition to Article 8, but 3, 1, 6, and 7 are not in addition to
Right.
Article 8. They're coming from things that have been accrued
Right.
in the past or accumulated. And of 2, 4, and 5, only one of those needs to be a secret ballot, and that's 2.
Right.
Okay.
That's the only article that needs to be a secret ballot.
I understand this.
Now, also, when you mentioned, and we're on this, Article 4, just so you know as moderator, this got turned down last year. The only article in the history of Waterville Valley that's ever been turned down. So, and there will be people there now prepared to address exactly what this study encompassed and everything else. This got turned, this was like, why are we spending this money? We don't need it. Just so you know.
And when you mentioned earlier presentations,
Right.
do we know who's making the presentation?
Mark will give you a list
Of who's
who that
making the
is, yeah.
presentation? So
In most cases, it's Mark. There are some exceptions.
I think
Article
Ray's,
4.
are you doing one, Ray?
No,
I think,
the
Or your
planning
sub-
board is gonna do one, we have the committee that worked
Right.
on it.
Right,
and
the
they'll
committee
send
will present Article 4.
So my question on that is, are you presenting with boards? Are you trying to present with a PowerPoint? How do you-
Overheads, they'll probably mostly do PowerPoint presentations.
Okay, and
Mark will organize all of that,
All of
have it
that.
all set, ready to go, and we'll test it.
now if somebody wants to speak from the floor and they want to make a PowerPoint presentation following the planning boards, how do we handle that?
Jeez, I don't know. I don't
As
know
long
if
as they
we've
got
ever
their own
had that.
stuff.
But that's really the issue because
One would assume they would
I mean,
have
if
to
it's
bring their
on
own materials.
If it's on some kind of a device and we can probably get it loaded if they wanted to do it.
well, the
Tom?
question becomes, do you want to take somebody's USB and plug it into somebody else's computer?
If
not
someone requests the ability to present some information that's critical to what they've done and it's on a USB port, I think we'd let them do it.
Bill?
Boy, that's
Would that not necessarily have to be looked at prior to?
that would
make
be
sure
my
it's-
thought, Bill. I mean,
to
this
make
could just
sure
get
nothing-
out of hand.
Well, I mean,
don't
you're
think it's gonna happen
hypothetical.
this
No
year
one
with
has
anything,
ever
but it's a
requested
good
anything
point.
like
Okay,
this.
so maybe
I mean-
one of the rules that we put in here is, if you're going to make if you're
Formal
looking to make a
presentation.
presentation that requires technology,
You'd have to request
that
it
be
in
done in
advance.
advance and we run through a dry run in advance, so we're not taking,
Yeah,
people
right.
aren't running up here with,
Right.
a USB and plugging it into somebody else's computer to try to run it up there. So I would consider, that would be one of the rules I'd like to
Yeah.
add, is that,
Sure.
you're welcome to use technology provided we've
But
used it and pre-tested it and all the rest. Now, having said that, does that mean our planning board is going to run through with Mark in advance?
Yes.
Okay.
Question on that, we have 10 minutes for the
10 or 15.
presentation?
10 minutes. I can't remember what it was last year. I thought it was 10 minutes. You
10
get 10
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah,
to
10
I
present.
think it was 10.
10 minutes is adequate,
That's it. You get 10 minutes.
and we're planning to have
And
boards and a power.
cut them off if you gotta cut them off.
So 10 minutes for the person making the presentation.
Making the, and it's clearly going to be a pro why you should vote for this amendment.
So now, what are we doing in terms of time limits? Because I would think that we'd want to limit people to a minute or two. I forget what we've used in the past.
I don't know if we've done anything other than we ask people to do it expeditiously. I would think that if you run it, you know, I would think, you know, you would say, we'd give somebody maybe 3 minutes, and if they can't get it said in 3 minutes, you're gonna have to say, we'll move on.
I think Bruce, I'd be interested if you could
Yeah,
get me
I'm
his.
sure there's something
there's
in
something.
that.
I don't mean to be
town
taking all
meeting
your
bylaw.
time.
No,
Ed.
you're not, we're done
We
anyway.
do this
so.
every year.
Bill?
Okay.
Yes.
A couple of times, I don't know how to say this, I'm on record here. A couple of times, people from the floor called the vote
Mm.
because
It was running on.
Just runs on and on and on.
That,
Move the
and that's
question
all
and call
fine,
the
but I
vote.
don't think we ought to, I don't think I wanna recognize that type of call. I think we ought to let folks go until we get to a point where
It's
you're seeing this fidgeting or
repetitious.
something, yeah, we're seeing, hearing the same thing over and over again. What I don't want somebody doing is calling it after the first or second speaker
No.
and not giving
No,
people an
Kevin,
Usually
opportunity.
it
that
was
doesn't
only
happen.
called after a lengthy time of repetition.
But I think Bruce had a limit that they would hear from somebody from both sides before anybody could call a question.
I think he did have that rule. Yeah.
You know, I don't know that this is or isn't, but, Cheryl in one computer may have some of Bruce's
I'm
past
sure we have.
information. Oh, you
Yeah.
have it?
I'm
maybe?
sure we have.
I'm sure we have
I'm
a
sure
copy
we
of
have
it.
All right.
some of those in
Yeah.
there.
The moderator does not have to allow somebody to call the question, but then
Right.
then somebody could then make a motion to vote to overrule the moderator, at which point the question would be called.
Right.
So it really is my understanding, it's in the control of the hands of the moderator as to when that question gets called.
Right, if you don't feel that adequate dialogue has been
right.
done, I would say that and say, well, I think this is still a productive discussion, we need to allow it to go on.
Can you do that?
I think unless somebody makes it a formal proposal, you know, on call the question, and I think he's right, I don't think he's.
Well, it's basically, it could be termed disruptive speech. I mean, you could
Right.
have people that are just looking to bring about an outcome, not allow something to happen. So they may try to move the question, they may try to raise a point of order on that. And my understanding is the way to handle it is to hear them out, let the moderator rule on it, and then the moderator could always be overturned by
Right.
a majority of the voters.
We have never, you know, generally in the past, I mean, never had any issues with people trying to take over an article or control the meeting that way. I mean, it's.
No, I remember Joseph
Some
Fuller
towns are
calling the
really
question
bad.
once.
Yeah, well, no,
But it
people
was-
do call
It was after an
questions.
awful long
Yeah,
event.
it's after the dialogue goes on, or usually what happens is people try to put in amendments and amendments on top of amendments, and, you know.
But we're not gonna allow amendments to
Right.
amendments, so we
No,
will,
you
we will
gotta
handle
take 'em
each
one at a
amendment
time,
one at a
right.
time. Is there anything that I've missed?
No. Just be
No.
careful not grinder pump, it's gonna be a point of contention.
So that's worth knowing, okay. So there really isn't anything other than
I think
an
Mark will
update.
be able to give you a great,
No,
his
I-
experience will be invaluable as far as putting this together, Kevin.
Okay.
I
And
mean,
once again,
Mark,
thank
on
you.
the budget will present an overview,
Yeah.
I expected to get, you know, but the budget hearing, we got really no pushback at all on the budget. None.
Yeah.
I mean, I was expecting some,
Yeah,
but we
there
didn't
was-
get any.
Well, I have no further questions.
And the dilemma always is a little bit of, we allow some dialogue on the budget, but this is not a budget here. You know, that's always the fine line.
Great.
Other than that, I think we're all right. Now, I do believe, and we've got Marilyn here, you could very well have I think the last item on the agenda is the sense of the meeting votes that come from the floor, and we do take those. And there's a possibility we may have some. Same rules apply, gotta be written, it's gotta be readable, and people just need to understand that this, all we're voting on is the sense of the meeting. We're not obligating anybody to do anything.
Right. And we think we have one of those?
Yeah, I think we have, we believe we have one of them, unless someone changes their mind, right, Maryland, right.
And so you'll submit that in writing prior to?
I was just gonna make a presentation.
But you'll have a written you'll have a
It's an article,
an
it's a
article.
warrant article.
No,
well, it's not a warrant
article.
article, but you'll have.
It's a sense of the meeting.
It's a sense of the meeting article, but you'll also have, I propose, da-da-da.
Let's treat it like an amendment where we want it in writing.
Yeah,
so we
it's
have a
gotta be in
record of
writing,
it.
right.
And it's very clear.
And then she's absolutely right, she can make, you can recognize her to make a presentation first,
And this is a 10-minute presentation only?
Yep, so, same rules, yeah, I don't think it should be more than 10 minutes.
And it's verbal, or will you be using any technology to?
No.
Okay, no
Verbal.
technology.
That's the only one I'm aware of at this time.
Yeah.
No daffodils this year?
Let's hope not. Jeez. Did we do that like, what did we have to
How
plant
can you
that?
forget?
And whatever
No, we
happened to
never did
that
it.
$2,000?
Yeah.
Who
So,
knew-
What do
we
you spend
could
that
be
on?
taken out of office for that,
Great daffodil conspiracy.
right?
We have to have a special prosecutor in charge of fauna and flora. All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.
And again, thank you for agreeing to do this.
my pleasure.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got? No correspondence?
No correspondence?
We do have some things for signatures of you all.
Okay.
And we did receive the, bond paperwork that needs signing, as well as the tax return that needs your signature.
Okay.
Hold it or not hold it.
Privilege of the floor, anyone else, like to raise an issue?
For a member of the board to welcome the Special Olympics, the Winter Games, and opening ceremony Sunday night at
I am not
7:30.
here Sunday night.
I'll do it.
You
Okay.
do it, Mike, I'm not here on Sunday
We
night.
can put you on the program.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
All right,
So-
next supermarket ribbon cutting, I'm out of it.
You got it.
So 7:30 in Town Square at the bandstand, I guess is.
Right?
Where do we?
Let's hope it's not snowing this year.
Yeah.
Let's hope the poor little kids aren't gonna freeze to death. No, but I guess they don't mind the cold, right?
We're athletes.
Last call, privilege of the floor. Board concerns and directives. I have two items that I'd like to bring up. I got an email, and it's kind of a strange thing, from,
That one is. There's a number of
from,
pages of
Yep.
I can't think of their name right now, from a citizen wanting to know whether the town would store their kayak. Now,
think
I don't believe-
once we get on that slippery slope.
well, apparently in the past, we did. In the past, we have no storage facilities that are unused, right?
No.
Right. Okay. Well, I said I'd bring it up. You don't see any necessity to create a storage facility for
Yeah.
kayaks? Okay.
We could ask
Tie it
them,
up underneath one of the
well,
bridges.
we wanna see if the wreck has room, well, no, they're just stored offsite.
Well, they are, yeah.
On that subject, it's interesting because last fall or late summer, there was a white kayak up where Snows Brook comes in, just stuck in the woods.
Oh,
Was it chained,
this could very well be the same kayak.
was it chained to a tree?
I don't know.
Yeah, this is close to where Larry Young lives?
No, where Snows Brook comes in, right by the bridge.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it
Was Larry Young who requested this, and
What color was it?
was white.
No.
no.
It was just stuck in it was just laying on the ground. I said, somebody's leaving a kayak.
I'll talk to Larry.
No, I'll talk.
I have a place for him.
Oh, you do? Good. Well, he would appreciate that. Okay.
$10 a month.
Did he use my brush?
And Chris, this is a more serious tone. The fire we had up in Forest Rim, I got a suggestion for someone. Do we, would it make sense as a town that on the sale of properties, that we create an ordinance that essentially says before you could take occupancy on a sale, the fire alarms that are in that unit must be functioning. And the police would go, you know, you'd go in and basically set them off and make sure they're working, or is it
That's
just?
not something that we wanna get into, because we don't, I think it's a state law that the seller has to, and Mike might be able to.
Is there a state law?
Yeah, it's a law.
Massachusetts has got a law where it has to be inspected and you need a
It
certificate.
has to be inspected.
Right, and we don't do that.
Yeah.
It's too much liability on us. If we go in and say, yeah, it works fine, and somebody messes with it, and,
Yeah,
you know. But I think it's actually the realtor that has to certify it.
but there is a state
or
law that
the seller.
says that it's,
The alarms are working.
that alarms are working.
Yeah.
Do we have CO2 in the state as well? I know
CO2
CO2 are required in
detectors,
rental,
yes.
but are they required in primary resident, non-rental units?
No, just
Okay.
rentals and multi-family.
Do we have, is it mandatory in Waterville, to have, carbon monoxide detectors like in
That's
restaurants and all that? It is? Okay.
What, Chris, isn't it
Based on
required
your
for
news
CO2 for new
recently.
builds?
Pages to sign are all straight down.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are all for the ones which are opposite side.
If there's not any other business, I think we're going to call this selectmen's meeting here to close. Now, we do have some non-public sessions. Purpose, I believe, of looking at some residency applications, right?
Yes, there's one.
So we'll ask all the residents to leave.
You're gonna miss the best part.